your vocals sounding amazing when you pop them in solo, but then you pop them in the mix and they disappear, they sound thin, they sound distorted. In this video, we're gonna fix those issues. I'm gonna show you the professional gain staging secrets to make your vocals sit perfectly in any mix every time. Welcome back to the Radium Records channel. I'm Bradley Denniston. I've contributed to Grammy, Emmy, and Oscar-nominated projects. I've earned platinum records, and I've worked on projects like The Lego Movie, Thor Ragnarok, and with artists like G-Eazy, Tegan and Sara, and The Lonely Island, just to name a few. This channel is dedicated to helping you make the best music of your life with the best tools available. Now, if you're ready to learn all about vocal production, effects, and parallel processing, then hit the thumbs up right there and let's dive into the video. The first thing we have to understand if we're going to lock in on a great vocal mix is gain staging. Right? And I'm not going to give you the textbook gain staging, boring definition. You can literally Google that or ChatGPT or whatever else you need to do. But gain staging is, I always want to start with the mix. I'm talking about recording levels in on your preamp, going into your DAW, what's being captured to tape or hard drive, that level, then your level that's printed, and that's really where we're going to start in this video. So I have this vocal right here that's been printed at this level. You see a visual representation right away of the audio waveform, and your very first gain stage is this audio waveform. So if I click on the audio waveform, the region, or if you're in Pro Tools, it's going to be a clip. Or if you're in Ableton Live, it's probably a clip or a region. I don't really know. But if you go there, that's your first gain stage. So right here, this gain is going to be our first gain stage. See that? Now, of course, if we go to 0, that's what it was recorded at. That's what it was printed at. So that's the gain, the very first gain stage. Now, something and a massive tip for you guys to understand gain staging better is to be able to pre-fader meter your audio. And that's very important to understanding what this gain is from this region. Because if I have this fader down here and I start playing, like let's do it. I don't mind your summer rain, keeping me warm. She don't need. It's saying negative 21 dB, right? So that does not make sense because look at this waveform. It's much louder than negative 21 dB. Just by looking at it, I can tell. Okay, so pre-fader metering. Right click on your control, customize control bar and display in Logic. You could do this probably in any DAW that's worth anything. Pre-fader metering is very important. All right, so we're gonna go here. We're gonna checkbox pre-fader metering. Now we're gonna see our little pre-fader meter up here and we could turn that on. Now, when I have that on, I am metering the gain stage of what that audio was recorded at. So you're going to see that on this fader right here at the bottom here, bottom left. I don't mind your summer rain, keeping me warm. Now, as you can see, we're hitting peaks of -2 here. So that makes a lot more sense if that's what it's recorded at. Now, if you want to make up the gain up or down, you can literally go here and say, hey, I want to give myself a little more headroom on this audio file. Let's say 2 more dB. So -2 dB. Now we should be hitting a peak of around -4, -3.8. Great. Now you can switch between pre-fader and post-fader metering. And if we're at post-fader, then we are talking about how loud this next gain stage is going to the next subgroup, master bus, whatever. Now, because we have this going to a vocal mix bus, if I go to my mixer, I have these all going to bus 1, all the vocals, and they're all going to this vocal mix bus with the Omnipressor and the UltraChannel on it. Okay? Now, this is a key thing. Our fader is the next gain stage of where we're sending that to. So this could be going to the master bus. We could be sending, -16.5 dB to the master bus. The whole point is that's your second gain stage. So your first gain stage is the actual clip itself, right? Right here, what was printed, what was recorded. The second is how much of that you're sending from the fader going to your vocal mix bus, your master bus, your subgroups, your sends, etc. So that's your second gain stage. Now your third gain stage is going to be this plugin, right? We have an input here where we can gain this up on this input 12 dB, or we could take it down 60 dB, right? So we're playing around with gain and we're adding or subtracting gain on every stage. So why would you push 12 dB into the input of a plugin? Because this plugin specifically, and most like it, are modeled after hardware versions, right? And they have tubes in them, and they have input transformers or output transformers or both. So we get these colors and this harmonic distortion from those things. So every time someone talks about grabbing a saturation plugin, just understand if you're using a compressor that is tube driven, or, you know, a Neve style preamp that has a input transformer on it, you're getting color and saturation from those things because these software units model exactly what the hardware is. Okay, so understand that about gain staging, what goes in, what comes out, and you're gonna go a lot further with this. So let's talk about getting our vocals right and gain staged in the mix. So the first thing I would do, of course, in any mix to get our gain stage right is to balance the vocals against the drums and bass. Okay, that's it. The major rhythmic elements. If you have a rhythm piano, rhythm guitars, cool. You can balance that against that as well. So let's just do that to start. I like my vocal to be a little, maybe a dB or two louder than the snare drum. Okay, that's my reference point. Perfect. Now let's go to a different section of this. Let's go to the chorus here and do the same thing. Let's just kind of gain stage our vocals to be a dB or two louder than the snare drum. Great, so that's our very first gain stage, is just balancing the vocals against the instrumental track. Now that doesn't mean that this won't change throughout our mixing process, but it's very, very important that you understand that is the very first gain stage, is your region, what you recorded, what you printed to tape, to DAW, to hard drive, whatever it is, right? And the next gain stage is going to be that fader, that large fader. Now, of course, if we put an insert plugin on here, that's our next gain stage before the large fader going anywhere else. So for example, if I throw an UltraChannel on here right now, let's just talk about this very first gain stage. We can take this input here and drive it up, right? And we have 12 dB of gain, and then we're going to our large fader. Okay, so let's take that and just gain it up and see what happens.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your...
Right away you see red. And red usually means bad, right? Usually, typically, but not always. All right, there's never a always in mixing and mastering or producing or any art like this. So think about this. If that's the first gain stage and you're hitting like right around 0 on that input, what would you do? Anybody? Answer in the comments. The first thing you would do is you go to your very first gain stage, which would be your clip, your region, and you would gain it down. And you take it down maybe 2 dB, right? And now you have 2 dB of gain going less to that input. So check it out. Now let's watch it.
Who am I to even try?
Now you have more headroom going to your plugin so you don't distort. And that is just your first tip, is make sure you understand the gain stages. Your region, the recorded, printed track, the insert second, if you're gonna put an insert like we're doing here. Third, then that goes to your fader. Your fader then can go to a subgroup or a master bus or whatever else, but that's where you're gaining things. So we wanna really focus on these first couple gain stages, and that's what we're gonna do in the next part of this video. Now let's get into building the solid foundation for your vocals, which is gonna be your insert effects. And that is gonna be our next gain stage. Now remember, we have the region. You've talked about the gain stage of the actual region. We've talked about pre-fader, post-fader, metering, understanding that that's your first gain stage. The second gain stage is your insert plugins, okay? And that's where we're gonna start talking about the E channel here, and we'll also dive into the Newfangled Audio Saturate plugin, which is actually a mastering plugin, but we're gonna use it however we want because, you know, I'm a bad boy and I like to break all the rules, you know what I'm saying? And then that's going to go to your bus 1, which is going to a vocal mix bus, which we'll talk about in the next chapter of this video. The E channel is a really cool plugin. It's got everything you need to really dial in the basics for vocals, right? And also you can switch around the compressor. So a lot of times people ask me, hey, does the compressor, you compress before or after the EQ? And that really depends, and you can do both. A lot of the times I'll end up doing both, but I'm gonna compress before the EQ on this one, and I'm gonna set sort of the dynamics. So I want them to stay still on the lead vocal. And then we're gonna do some cleanup and EQ kind of, you know, shaping with the EQ, the 5-band parametric EQ here after the compressor. And we're paying attention to, again, our gain stages, gain in, gain out. Every single module is going to have a new gain stage. We have the gain input here, which is coming in directly off of the gain from the pre-fader metering that you're getting from this actual waveform that's recorded. So if you turn it on to pre-fader and we listen and watch this meter,
Who am I to even try? You knew I.
you'll notice those meters now sync up perfectly on here, on this, because it's pre-fader. We're metering this level from the region, and this meter here on the input to your plugin. So very important to understand the gain staging. Hopefully you're getting, I'm beating this over the head because that's what this video is really about. All right, so now on the input, we can make up gain. We can say, let's take it down a little bit, or let's take it up a little bit, or you can go again back up here and gain it down a little bit more. Say, hey, give me another dB. You know, now we have another dB of headroom on our input, so we can drive the compressor because it has a saturation module. We can saturate it more or less, and then we can hit the EQ because once we hit the EQ after the compressor, we're going to add more gain or take away more gain because you have filters. You can dip down gain, you can bring up gain, etc. And then you have the output gain and a X-former, which is like a transformer sound on the output. So let's tweak this. Let's set this lead vocal, and then let's copy it down to our doubles and everything else. First thing, let's compress.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
The way I like to set the compressor is I hit the threshold really hard, and then I tweak the ratio attack release. And also, you have a knee here. So hard knee at 0 dB per octave slope. 24 dB is going to be more of a soft knee on the compression. So just flip through these and hear how they sound with the threshold really cranking.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
That 24 dB per octave is real smooth compression, right? So I'm going to leave it on that, and let's bring the threshold up. So we're just compressing maybe 3 to 5 dB.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Awesome. You'll notice that the S is hitting really hard on that summer because we have the de-esser on. Now, a little tip for you, if you're using a TLM 103 or anything without a transformer, a microphone that is literally transformerless, you're going to want to de-ess around that 5 to 6K area. Typically, that's what I find in a male vocal. That's a really cool thing, built-in de-esser. Let's turn on the saturate and hear what that sounds like.
Who am I to even try?
Yeah, it's not making much of a difference, and this is where gain staging comes into place. If you wanted to saturate really hard, you could probably gain this up and you'd hear the saturation a lot more when you're compressing harder with more gain feeding it. But I'm gonna leave that off for now, and let's go to the EQ. I'm gonna turn it on, and I'm gonna sweep up. This is usually how I filter. I sweep up here, and I bring it down until the body comes back. And right as the body comes back, I'm like, that's good. I don't want any rumble in the low end, but I do want the body of the vocal.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Yeah, right around 95 is great for me. You can also see that there's a bunch of different dB per octave slopes, so you can go a little harder with it or lighter, right? 6 dB per octave, 12 dB per octave, or you could even just do a low shelf and just shelf it down a little bit, which it's up to you, whatever you want to do. And I'm going to just leave it on the 12 dB because I really like that. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is look around this low mid stuff and see if there's anything I'd want to cut out of the vocal. So we're cutting before we boost.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. 2 warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your...
Yeah, that 400 area gets a little nasally. Now, don't get tricked by peeking something out and being like, sounds like shit. Everything sounds like shit when you peek it out. You do need to train your ear, you know. This isn't something you just learn overnight. Like, oh, well, that sounds like crap, you know, because you peeked it up. Of course it sounds like crap. You peeked it way up, right? So I'm just going to dip down just a touch of that. Negative 3 dB. Let's go like negative 2.9. And the Q here, you could tighten it up or loosen it a little bit. I'm just going to loosen it up a little bit. And then I have a little peaking here at, what is it, 1.4? Let's check that.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
That 3 to 3.5K in a vocal is really nice. It kind of like helps it get spitty and pop out of the mix a little bit. Let's just pop this in the mix now. We got the EQ, we got the compression, and we are peaking on the output. That's fine. You know, we're adding that. If we turn on the X-former, we can give that some color and it'll round it out. It's like an output transformer. It's going to give us some harmonics to those peaks and that over. So check it out. I'll bypass that in and out.
Who am I to even try? Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Yeah, so a little red on the plugin, no big deal. Those are on peaks, so just pay attention where the red's happening. If it's just happening the whole way through and you're hearing that distortion that's not good, not musical, you probably want to bring your output down, okay? But on this, I'm just going to hit it with the X-former, which is going to help me kind of just give some harmonics to that. Now let's bypass this in and out just so you can hear what we've done with the EQ.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. 2 warm clouds float above my head.
Dope. All right, and let's go back to post-fader metering because that's really what we want to be metering now. Metering. You don't want to be metering. Maybe you want to be metering. Really depends. You know, what kind of mood are you in? We're going to take the gain down about a dB here just to be really safe because remember, this video is all about gain staging. And we're going to take this down about half a dB. Remember, this gain is going to affect how much hits this compressor. So be very careful as if you really like the compression tone that you have and you bring this gain down or up, it's going to change the tone of that compression. All right, just something to be aware of. Now we're going to hit the Newfangled Audio Saturate, which is actually a mastering plugin, but we're going to get some color out of this. We have drive, detail preservation, clipper shape, symmetry. We have a hard limit ceiling, and we have output. You can go here and you can go to automatic and just leave it on auto, and that's going to give us an auto makeup for our output. So gain staging becomes a lot easier for you, right? So let's leave it on auto.
Summer rain, 2 warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
It sounds so cool. I think you could get away with driving this a ton and then using it as a parallel, right? And then blending it in with the lead vocal. I think that'd be really cool. But for now, I'm just trying to add just a little touch of vibe to it, okay? It's nothing crazy. Like almost like hitting a tape machine with a vocal just adds this extra vibe. So I'm gonna go back to manual and I'm gonna make up the output gain myself.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. 2 warm clouds.
Beautiful. Now let's bypass these plugins in and out so you can hear A and B.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. 2 warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
All right, and as I'm mixing, I'm gonna now take these plugins, kind of duplicate them down on the tracks and tweak those to fit those tracks better. And the next part we're gonna go into on this video is we're gonna talk about hitting that vocal mix bus and really dialing that in as we have all the vocals going to that mix bus. What are we gonna do with that with the Omnipressor and the UltraChannel? So let's get into it. Now that we've talked about gain staging from the insert plugins on each individual vocal track, we're going to talk about now the subgroup vocal mix bus, which is the next gain stage. So in this part of the song, which is just the first verse, I have all the vocals going to this vocal mix bus, and I'm going to break down what I have on this vocal mix bus and exactly what I'm doing. But let's listen first to what's going on with just the lead and the double here.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make a good love.
All right, so what we got is a vocal lead, and then we have these vocal doubles, which is left and right. On the vocal doubles left and right, we have the UltraChannel, okay? And that's doing a little bit of that top because it's going, I don't need, like it's real whispery. And I'm taking down that 500, 600 area because that's what pushes things forward in the speakers. So if I brought that up, all of a sudden you'd have this thing that's not so whispery. It'd be more of like a lead vocal. So that's why I took it down in the doubles here. Now, another thing I have going on is the Omnipressor. And the Omnipressor is a really special plugin and also hardware unit. What we get here is we get compression to the right, clockwise, and we get expansion to the left. So you can either expand or compress, which is amazing with this plugin, but there's a ton of different weird features that you might not be aware of with this plugin. So first off is the attenuation limit, and second off is the gain limit. So with a traditional compressor, your gain is going to be like a makeup gain, or like a FET compressor, you have the input gain, and then you make up the gain with the output sort of thing. And the input would drive into your compression, the threshold, right? How much it's compressing. With this one, you can hit it with a bunch of threshold and then set an attenuation limit on it. So you could say, hey, only attenuate up to 10 dB, 5 dB, 3 dB, but you're gonna get the tone of pushing into the input and using the threshold of the compressor, which gives it a different tone, right? Since we're talking about gain staging, that's how it works. So if we took this attenuation limit and let's say we did like only go up to 6.5, negative 6.5 gain reduction attenuation. On the Omnipressor and the threshold, check it out. Let's just compress and turn the threshold down.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
It makes it hit a ceiling at negative 6.5 on the attenuation, which you can hear the color changing as we take the threshold all the way down. But if we took the attenuation limit all the way up to negative 30 dB, watch how much it will actually attenuate.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up.
Right, we're around 12 dB of compression gain reduction there when we have the threshold all the way down, but the attenuation limit completely open. So this is a really cool feature because it allows you to just like boom, 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 and then you know you're never going to attenuate more than 5, 10 dB, etc. So I'm gonna set this around like 10 dB. And then the gain limit is the same thing. You know, how much makeup gain you're gonna get out of it. So let's say I wanna do like, because I have negative 10 or 9.9, let's make this 9.9 as well. So we could just match it on the output.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up.
See how now the output gain doesn't have anything to do with it? That's because we have a gain limit here, okay? So just something to think about and something to use that's unique with this Omnipressor, but it has a really cool tone as well, obviously, as you can hear. But if you wanna hit it, just hit it 12 dB input and then make up the output or set the gain limit here. I'm going to just take the gain limit off. We'll just put it at 0 right now.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need.
So we can get all sorts of colors using this Omnipressor. Right now it's on this double. So let's solo this out and just mess around with some of these features I just told you about.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up.
See how it keeps those vocals nice and forward, but also like really squishy and FET compressor sounding. Like they have a nice tone, nice harmonic to them. And I'll just A/B this in and out.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
All right, we get a little bit more air, a little bit more harmonics out of that. So now let's go to the vocal mix bus here, and let's talk about why we would hit this, all these vocals going through a vocal mix bus. The first thing to do, or why we would do it, is to compress all the vocals together using another Omnipressor, right? So we can get this kind of glue and get them to be cohesive and to be gelled, like congealed together. So they don't sound like separate vocals doing all sorts of things and dynamics going up and down, etc. This is the sound of a record, is to be compressing on a vocal mix bus. So let's hear this in and out.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
Just sounds so good, right? Like that harmonic structure, it sounds so much more like a record. Let's go to the chorus so you can really hear this with all 4 of these stacks here.
Who am I to even try?
A beautiful gluing effect, nice harmonics coming in. The next thing I'm going to add to the vocal mix bus here is the UltraChannel. And the reason the UltraChannel is because we get this really cool effect here called the MicroPitch Shift. Now this is found in the H3000 plugin and hardware unit, and it is right here under 231 MicroPitch Shift. And this is just like a beautiful kind of charcoal smearing in, gives some width and some depth to the vocals, and is just a really, really cool sound. Of course, on the up and down here, the left-right pitch, I have this at 5%, but it defaults to 9% on both sides. So it gives it a little bit more width. And I think the right delay is at 25% by default. But you could just blend this in. You see that the mix is at 17%. We'll go 100%, and I'll just A/B this for you so you can kind of hear it really wet and really dry.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Just a really beautiful effect for giving this new dimension to the vocals. Let's put it in the mix as well real quick. And this effect has been used on records from David Bowie to Prince to anything and everything in between. It's a really, really famous effect. So that's something that I just love to do, to put the vocals more into the stereo and less just right in the middle. So if you have a part you want to kind of stereoize, this is the plugin for it. In the UltraChannel, we have this kind of like, you know, hardcore chisel of it, right? So let's turn it on. Let's take the size up, the width up, and we will just blend this into the mix. Really beautiful. And the UltraChannel has so many cool things in it, like the Omnipressor that I have here. Another stage of compression to pre-chew the vocals before they then go to the master bus, right? So we're not having these peaks that will trigger a limiter or something that's going to be dynamically processing the whole of the signal on the master bus, which means we can get louder overall because our crest factor, the difference between peak and RMS, becomes smaller and smaller, right? But we still want dynamics through the compression, through the transients, etc. And that's going to happen with saturation. And like this compressor has a 16.7 millisecond attack on it. It allows just the initial transient to come through, and then we compress. And then I have the release at 69 milliseconds, which means it's only holding on for a little bit. It's just very smooth, and 2.5 to 1 is a very small ratio. And we're just compressing the very tips and the pa and the ch and the plosive stuff. Just watch the meter. Right on that try, it just like gives you a dB of compression. Very small, but it's going to help those peaks not reach the next process on the master bus. Now I'm going to turn on also this little dip here and just listen to what happens when we EQ a little bit before the compressor, right? So you can push in a frequency to make the compressor react more to a certain frequency, or we could take it down to make sure that the compressor doesn't react as much to a peaking frequency in what you have with all your vocals. So listen to this. Helps the vocals kind of sit back a little bit more when you take out that 400 area. So 436 is where I'm at. I'm not super particular about the exact frequency, but I want to get pretty close, and I want to just kind of paint and, you know, have fun with it. But as you know, the gain staging and stuff, you start to have more fun with it, right? Because you know what you're doing. And I'm going to go back to the H3000 MK2 instead of this MicroPitch shift found here, because it's just the sound that I have that's more in my head and what I'm feeling. And let's just bypass all of these plugins that we have on the vocal mix bus in and out so you can hear before and after. Sounding really cool. We got a nice smearing effect into the record. The vocals are sitting really cool, and that's what I'm going for this chorus. So let's move on and let's get into some parallel processing, because that's where we get into some really fun stuff and some cool colors. Are you getting anything out of the video? If you are, please hit that like button. Drop a comment below, please. That's all I ask. Nothing else. I don't need any money or anything else from you. Just hit the like button, drop a nice comment. And let's dive into vocal parallel processing, which is all the fun stuff. This is all the sweetening. This is all the amazing effects. And Eventide's got some really cool stuff. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to show you what we're doing here. So we got a vocal lead, vocal double, we're going to buses and all this stuff. But before I break down the parallel effects, let's look at some routing stuff. As we have all these vocals building up and they're all going to the vocal mix bus, we also need to have a all vocal bus because we're going to have these parallel effects, right? And we want all the vocals and all the parallel effects to match up and meet at this all vox bus. Why? So that we can mute that and that will mute everything. All the returns from the vocal effects, the parallel sends, all that stuff, it's going to be muted so we can hear just the instrumental or all the vocals with all the effects, or we can mute just the effects, or we can mute just the vocals and hear just the effects, etc., etc. It gets crazy, I know, it's a rabbit hole. But this is the all vox, and then it's going to go to the master bus. And in the next chapter after this, we're going to talk about the master bus and doing all that good stuff, because that is the final frontier and the final dB of your vocal and your mix and everything. But for now, let's talk about all these parallel sends and what we got going on. So all the vocals, bus 1, right? They're going to the vocal mix bus here. They're all meeting up. I showed you what we did. We put all these plugins on here. Omnipressor, UltraChannel, dipping out that area. Also, we had the compressor on, which is amazing. And then we have that H3000 just gluing everything together, giving some width and smearing the vocals into the mix. But from here, we're going to take that to bus 2, which is going to be this all vox bus. And then also all these effects here and all these parallel sends, we have those going to bus 2, meeting at the all vox. Okay? So I just want to make that really clear so you really understand. If you get it, hit the thumbs up. All right. I know I'm begging for likes over here. I'm such a dick. But here we go. So we have some parallel effects. Let's listen to what we got going on here. This is the lead vocal coming into verse 1.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
All right. So let's focus on what's happening here. You hear the dimension, right? Let's just A-B it so you can really hear it. This is all those send effects that I have going on, bypassed, and I'll pop them in and out.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
Now, regardless of what you think, you're like, oh, I like them dry better. It sounds way better without those effects. That's fine. This isn't your song. You know, you mix your song however you want. I'm just showing you what you can do. All right, so don't beat me up. I'm just teaching you something, showing you some tricks. This first bus we have here is bus 3, and this is going to the H3000 again. But this time we're using something a little different. It is a vocal slap preset. And this one's called Barry's Stereo Spreader. And it's just absolutely gorgeous. It just sets the vocals into a really nice dimension. And you can find that under delay, slapback delays, Barry's Stereo Spreader. There it is. All right, so let's turn this on and just listen to this through the lead vocal here on the verse coming in.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love.
Really dope vibe. And because this part is really kind of in your face and sensitive, I don't want to have this huge reverb because it takes away from that personal touch of the vocal and the performance. So with this, I'm just giving it a little bit of dimension. So it's a dry vocal, but it still has like some stereo and some back. So what I try to do with effects like this is I try to just blend them up just enough to where you feel them. But if you take it away, you're like, it's missing something. What happened? So that's what I'll do here on this bus 3. And I'll just play this back and I'll show you what that sounds like and how I find that.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make good love. And when I'm ready to drown, she'll keep pulling me out.
Dimension, baby. That's what it's all about. All dimension. So it's just this gorgeous dimension. Now bus 7 here, this is where we get into the black hole. Now this plugin and the pedal itself is legendary. When I first came to LA, I worked with Mark Mothersbaugh. He's the lead singer of Devo, and I worked with him for about 5 years. And I worked on a bunch of movies with him and all that stuff. He's a great composer. And this was one of his favorite pedals to put everything through. Like he had all these vintage synths and analogs, everything, but he also put his vocals through it all the time and recorded with it. And it's just a really fun pedal. You can get some really crazy effects with it, especially using this gravity knob here. I have it at negative, so it gives this kind of like sucking reverse reverb kind of sound. And this together going with the H3000, this is like a magic combo, right? Check this out. So I'm going to put on the bus 7 and I'll just like overdo the send obviously for this on the lead vocal here.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make a good love.
So here's just the wet return of the black hole. The return of the black hole. Sounds like a naughty movie. All right, so I'm gonna solo this in and out. Check it out.
She don't need me to rush to make a good love. And when I'm ready to drown, she'll keep pulling me out.
Really cool effect. It's just gonna add so much dimension. Also, you can do a throw with this. You could just like unmute it on just certain phrases and it's kind of trippy, give some psychedelic to it. You know what I'm saying? It just adds dimension and texture. Now on these vocal doubles here, the left-right stereo, I have it sending to bus 5, which has this Tverb on it. And this Tverb is one of my favorite reverbs of all time. I love it for the small reverb sound. So that small reflection, small room. This is at 1.45 on the decay and just mic 2. So you can see mic 1, 2, and 3 here in the room. Right? And this is a studio room, so it sounds really, really cool. Check this out though. I'm going to bypass in and out the Tverb.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make a good love.
Just giving us that little extra early reflection going on, right? Now that blended with a longer reverb and a deeper reverb, which is the SP2016, another favorite of mine. These two together is like some of the best sounding reverbs of all time ever made. In my opinion, seriously, I'm not joking. I'm not trying to sell you guys on this. These two together, incredible. Why? Because you have this position, okay? This position fader allows you to put the reverb way back in space. Right, so check this out. I'm gonna take this position and I'm gonna move it from forward to rear.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make a good love.
Incredible sounding. I love that feeling. So together we have a short room reverb and a long diffuse deep reverb. And those together just like make this really beautiful blend. Of course, you could send as much or as little as you want. And them together sound like this with the lead and that double.
I don't mind your summer rain keeping me up. She don't need me to rush to make a good love. And when I'm ready to drown, she'll keep pulling me out.
And that is the power of parallel effects and sends. Those are going to the all vocal mix bus. We also have one last thing here, which is really fun, and I've just been having a lot of fun with it. So I stacked the H3000 on the micro-pitch shift setting, and that is at its default setting, so 9% on each side. So plus 9%, minus 9%. And then we have 25% delay on the right and 100% on the mix, okay? Because this is a return, so we want to be sending 100% here. And then 910, the H910 is the kind of cool thing here. That makes it a little different for this pre-chorus because I want this moment to happen. So I'm going to just show you this effect soloed out and I'll overdo it. I'll send a ton to it just so you can hear it.
We won't stop, spill like waterfalls.
So that's really cool, right? We have also like a pitch down vocal, and this H910 has a little bit of like weirdness to it, which makes it very unique. So you can see that this harmonizer kind of glitches out. It's like 50, 51, 49, right? It's just like, ugh. So it gives this variation and this modulation to it. And then I have this also going to this H3000 vocal slap on this pre-chorus, and then bus 7 here as well, which is the black hole. So we get all these effects combined on this pre-chorus to give us a moment. And I love moments in records. It's just like the name of the game. You want this little spicy section that's totally different from everything else, and it just makes the ear go, oh, this is interesting. And that'll really help your arrangements as well. So let's hear these effects and everything bypassed in and out just on this pre-chorus. So here's in the mix as well.
We won't stop, spill like waterfalls.
All right, and then here's with the effects in the mix.
We won't stop, spill like waterfalls. Who am I?
We just get a magical moment there, right? And now let's solo this out so you can really hear this.
We won't stop, spill like waterfalls. We won't stop, spill like waterfalls.
Such great dimension, really, really fun to mess with. But use these effects on different parts to define sections and make your arrangement really interesting, keep people listening, get more streams on Spotify. That's the name of the game right there. So that's the parallel effects and sends. We're gonna move on now to the most interesting part of this whole thing, and where your mix can either be really awesome or can totally fall apart, especially with gain staging. And we're gonna get into the master bus. Let's go. Vocals are gonna reach the master bus. So that's what we're gonna talk about in this last part of this video. I hope you guys have really enjoyed this and you've stuck around, because we're gonna get into the nitty gritty of getting your LUFs high, getting your vocals to pop, and really making sure we don't distort, we don't have thin vocals, we're not killing everything when we get to the master bus, okay? And we're gonna be using this Newfangled Audio Elevate plugin, which is absolutely stunning, and it's been out for a long time and it's still just so good. And we're going to talk about all the things that we got in this thing. Right now I have it bypassed, but let's just play the mix with it bypassed, and then I'll pop it in and we're going to adjust some things and I'll show you how this works. Get these vocals sounding good.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
All right, so for me personally, the chorus vocals are a little loud, right? But I'm not gonna adjust those vocals until I start to set a limiter, clipper, get some ideas going on the master bus to get everything glued together. So what we have here on this plugin is we have an input-output. This is all just for what we're actually metering here, okay? Gain reduction, metering gain reduction, or we're metering the filter bank. All right, we're going to talk about what all these things are, and you can see the colors as well. Input meters, output meters, gain reduction meters. The main parameters, this guy right here is showing us the main parameters of the submodules, okay? So the main parameters of the filter bank, limiter EQ, transient, clipper. All right, and you can see these are kind of like routed. You see that? Transient emphasis, limiter EQ, Filter bank is literally just showing you the crossover points for these different frequencies and how many bands there are. So you could switch this to 26 bands, right? You can get really, really minute, like very small crossover points, which then affects the limiter EQ, right? The EQ bands that we can use that are going to be then affecting the transient, right? The transient bands, which then hit the clipper. And the clipper is where we are doing an overall frequencies, okay? We're not breaking it down into all these different bands and crossover points. So just the limiter EQ and the transient is able to do that. And there's some really cool features here to allow you to really dial in a modern master. All right, so we're going to focus on this. We're going to match the level, we're going to activate the plugin, and we're going to start by just getting ourselves a little bit of limiting. Okay, there's a 2 dB limit here. Let's start to bring that up and hear what it's sounding like.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
So right away, when you bring everything up, you're limiting it. You're putting a brick wall here, but you're also bringing up the low-level information. That's what a limiter does. Like that. It's like, limit the peaks, bring up low-level information. It's the best way I can like show you what it looks like without drawing something or having insane graphic effects, right? But that's what it's doing. That's what the limiter's doing. So you can hear, oh, now the vocals are getting too loud. What I like to do is I like to turn my speakers down, and I like to listen at a pretty low volume, like speaking level, just a little bit above speaking level, and listen to the overall balance and go, are the vocals too loud? Are the drums too loud? You know, what needs to come up? What needs to go down? So that's what I'm going to do right now. I'm just going to monitor.
Who am I to even try? You knew
Yeah, vocals are too loud. It's obvious to me. Now, when you want to actually monitor low-end information and drums and all that stuff, kick drums, 808s, bass, sub, bring your monitors back up because it'll flatten out the curve of what you're going to hear, like your ear, how we hear psychoacoustically, okay? When we get it to a louder volume, that curve, the Fletcher Munson curve, kind of flattens out. Okay, so we hear things a little bit more even because our ears have natural compression within them, all right? So you don't really want to be monitoring low level, like low end, really low level. And it takes a very good, like these Dutch and Dutch 8Cs that I have here, it takes very good speakers to be able to monitor low end information at a low volume, okay? So just a little tip for you guys. So I'm going to bring this up to a little bit like, you know, hey, 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 like that loud, okay? And I don't know if you're going to get how loud that is, but that's about where I'm going to be. Now I'm going to mess around with a few things. I'm going to go back to the vocal mix bus or the all vocals because I know that's where I have all my vocals and effects coming to. And I'm going to bring this down until I feel like the vocals are at a good level with this limiting.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Yes, I like it. It sounds very good. And the reason I do that is because that's the loudest thing to my ear, hitting the limiting and hitting the master bus stuff, okay? And that means that'll be the first thing to distort, to cross over a peak. Get what I'm saying? To get clipped off, etc. So we want to have like everything pretty even, but we still want the vocals to be a little bit louder than everything, or the drums. It's really up to you how you want to shape it. But here's some other things and other tools that we can use to shape, okay? So we're going to go to the limiter EQ, and you can literally draw in a curve. So say you wanted like a smiley face curve. You could do this kind of thing, right? Draw that in, and we'll duck down. Oh, we'll duck down like down here, right? We'll go like, start ducking here. And we'll just make a little dip and then we'll come back up around 1K, right? And we'll draw that. And then maybe we'll give a little bit of a dip around like that 2K area because that kind of gets a little harsh, you know? That like, ah, that's like where a baby cries, right? So we'll do this. And then I'm just like looking at the frequencies. And then I'm going to bring up a little bit of that 3K area. And then I'm going to come back down, down, and then up. And then I'm going to boost up just the high end up here. So we have a bit of a smiley face curve. Right? Just a little bit, not a lot, right? Now let's hear this as this feeds the transients, okay? So we got a limiter EQ.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
That is so musical to my ear, right? So I'm just going to go back out here and go to the main parameters, the limiter EQ right here. So we have a true peak on, we have 26 bands on the limiter, and let's just bypass this in and out, what we just did.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Beautiful. Now that means we can push a little bit more gain into the clipper here. So this is where we start to clip a little bit. We can drive, right? This is going to be the drive. And then this is going to be the clipper shape, soft to hard. I like a pretty like soft clipping on Master Bus because it gives this really nice harmonic fuzz, which I find saturates the reverbs, the delays, the width, everything else. And it makes everything feel deeper and wider, right? That's what harmonics do. It distorts the reverb tails and everything so that your ear can hear them better. So deeper into the mix, wider, right? You can hear the widening. It gets distorted. It gets this little like fuzz on it. Instead of just the sine wave and the fundamental or whatever, we get a little harmonic kind of, you know, sprinkle, fairy sprinkle dust kind of stuff going on. I don't know how to explain it. I just hear it. Okay. So now let's bring this drive up and let's hear what this clipper's doing.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. 2 warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
You see there's a threshold where it really distorts? You got to pay attention to what frequencies are actually distorting. Okay. Is it the low end? Is it the low mids? Is it the high end? Is it the mid range, the 1K to 3K? Pay attention to your ear on that. And the way we can really pinpoint that, you know, obviously this is driving too much. That's the first thing I want to say. But the way we can pinpoint that is we can go to these frequency bands and we can solo them out, right? So we can actually hear what they're doing in solo. So let's do that.
Who am I
So that 2K area is like really starting to fire off, right? Like, oh God, that's kind of harsh. So just kind of like tuck it back a little bit more, right? And this like 1600 area, let's hear that in solo. Just knowing that we can go back to the vocal mix, we can go back and we can EQ a little bit of that down. We can compress the vocal a little bit harder in just that range with a multiband compressor, etc. Right? We can control that a little bit more. But for now, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to go back to my clipper here, and I'm going to adjust down the drive a little bit and the clipper shape, and let's hear how it sounds.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. Two warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
All right, so now we're starting to get some good level, some saturation. Things are starting to glue together really well. Let's start to mess around a little bit more with the limiter. Okay, so we're gonna go to the main parameters, and we're gonna mess around with the speed and the ceiling. I think the ceiling's fine at -0.1. If you wanna be extra safe, you can go down to like -0.3. Some people go -1, right? It just depends on the medium you're mastering for. I think for Spotify, just leaving it at -0.1 is fine. It's not going over 0, we're good, right? So this is gonna be, the faster you go on the speed on the actual limiter, the more it's not going to hold down and limit and brick wall. It's gonna let go, which means you're gonna get distortion, right? So if you take this really, really freaking fast, like 0 milliseconds, it's gonna sound really good because it's gonna be super loud, but it's also not going to be smooth and tight and held together, and it's not going to catch overs as well, right? Luckily, we have a true peak on here, which will help us a little bit, but if it's so fast, it won't catch it because it's just letting go, right? Like relative speed of level detector. We want to stay somewhere around the, where it's already set, like 1 to 2, 1 to 5 milliseconds, depending on the rhythm of your track. Like this track it's pretty slow. It's like in the 80 BPM area. So you can go like a little bit slower on it. And then let's mess around with the gain here, and let's just try to get this to sound really good. And then we'll mess around with the transients and make sure that the drums are hitting and everything.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
Sounding great to me, right? Let's bypass everything so you guys can now get a complete A/B of what we have for the vocals and for this whole mix in general and the gain staging. And remember, it's all about like, you do the steps, but it's a modular process. So you go through all these steps and you're like, step by step, I followed the video exactly, but my vocals are distorting. Okay, now let's talk about troubleshooting that stuff after we do a A/B here, so you can really understand where the gain stages are and the things you can check to make sure that you don't get that distortion, that clipping, that thing that you keep running into that's stopping you from having a beautiful, open, powerful master, right? But first, let's A/B it. And here's after everything we've done in this video.
Who am I to even try? You knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain. Two warm clouds float above my head. I knew I'd be washed up in your summer rain.
There you go. The proof's in the pudding, right? I think that sounds much better. You guys let me know what you think in the comments, but this is much more what I'm going for in a record. Now, a couple tips for you guys. After you make your bounce and everything, use a bunch of different reference points, okay? No matter what you're sold on, this one size fits all kind of silver bullet of, if you get these headphones, you're never gonna need anything else. You still need to reference on other stuff, right? Just to see, just to check before you go like, yeah, this is great. I have these special headphones, right? So I have a couple here. This is open back headphones, which are the DT 1990s. And these are really good for bass and open placement of stuff, reverbs, delays, etc. And then I also have the closed back version of these, the 1770 Pros. And these are good for just listening to an overall, mid-range, high-end kind of stuff. But I use both of these. I use earpods, and then I'll also reference on my MacBook Pro speakers, like in my phone. Like I'll bounce it and put it on my phone and just listen to it. Like, is anything really crazy harsh on the phone? Am I hearing the bass come through, or is it all sub bass that's only working on my Dutch and Dutch, right? So that's a very important part of referencing, and also just using these tools that are built into these plugins. Like you have a gain reduction meter here. You have an in and out metering, right? You have these meters here. Here you could do manual or automatic on the output here, but you have like a peak RMS. You could see everything right here on the plugin. So there's a lot of ways that you can monitor and check things out. And the last thing I'm going to say is to troubleshoot any of this stuff, when you start hearing distortion because your vocals are coming in too crazy, sometimes it's a matter of just turning the vocals down, right? Or turning something else down, or something else up. Like you can't have everything all the time. You can't have super low end, big subby stuff going on, and then also have a really full, rich vocal going on that's in your face and not distorted. Like we have to understand what we are dealing with when we're making these final mastering moves and things. But this is all I got to say about all this stuff. This has been a really long video. I hope you guys really got a lot out of it. I'm going to leave links in the description to all these plugins that I'm using in this whole thing. If you guys want the template for this, you want the Logic Pro template, just let me know in the comments. I'll drop a link to the Logic Pro template so you can get all these plugins, all the little effect sends and all that stuff. And I just hope you guys get something out of this. And if you did, show some love. All right. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.